I am so glad we are talking about how bonkers women get when we are in relationships with men who are cheating or whatever, doing sneaky stuff, creating all kinds of betrayal trauma that we may never get over and then carry into other relationships, including healthy ones, so that we are constantly in a state of paranoia and trying not to project our old stuff onto a current partner. So this came up on the internet on Twitter, but it's actually from TikTok, and I took some screenshots because this woman, the way she shamelessly shares the stuff that she did in order to catch her partner cheating, it's very brave. It's brilliant. And I think that the more we talk about this stuff, the less alone we feel, the more of a reckoning we have with ourselves. Because honestly, like the stuff that my ex did, you know, the one who was, you know, narcissist and like almost me and did all this stuff, whatever, the little homosexual, you know, whatever. Before I forget, please follow my Patreon if you're not already. That is where I'm sharing all kinds of stuff about healing, dating, creativity, living in France, all kinds of stuff. And even if you can't afford it, yeah, I do share some stuff on the free level. But if you want to go to my lives, if you want to hear like deeper stories, more personal stories, that is where I'm sharing it. So please check it out. It's in my caption. Yeah. Hey, we're having fun over there. It's like the thing that the hardest part to get over is the stuff that I excused in my head, the crazy lengths that I went to, because I was just so mind forked by the whole thing. And part of it is because he was a like total narcissist, and I do not use that word lightly. My dad was a narcissist, diagnosed in the 70s or 80s, I don't know, but back before it was a thing. It doesn't surprise me I ended up dating one, but this one was a very violent, like super dangerous one. And when I think of all the ways that I just got pulled into his little universe, whatever, look at this cute dress, y'all. $5 used online. Just wanted to say that. I'm always so proud of it when I find little, oh my God, little deals. And you know, the fact that I'm wearing a dress, I like to celebrate wearing dresses in the summertime because I'm hot, but also because they're kind of pretty. Anyway. And by the way, being with that dude was the first time that I ever tapped into like wanting to wear dresses or anything feminine. And I think that that was also one reason why I got into that relationship, among many things like unhealed trauma from childhood and childhood SA and blah, 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 blah. And also just like not knowing about, not really understanding the red flags for narcissism or any of that stuff. So I didn't even know what to look for, which is one of the reasons why I share this stuff. But also because it was the first time I think I can remember in my life since becoming like this like tough chick who's like outdoor leader, blah, 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 where I was like really like embracing like wanting to look feminine sometimes, like wanting to wear like a cute skirt or whatever, because I usually just like rejected that part of myself. And so I think that also was like, I was finding a different version of myself with him. But then I ended up becoming like his mother, which I've never wanted to be anyone's mother, and all kinds of things. I became the worst version of myself, but with some parts of myself that I discovered that I actually tried to retain. You know, I do think that we find ourselves in relationships, sometimes the worst parts of ourselves that I need to work on, and then other parts of ourselves like, yeah, didn't know I had this nurturing side until I was literally forced to parent a man. Don't you have I carried a diaper bag around with snacks, you know, a lighter, anything that this man, this king baby, he'd get his little fix, you know, bottle of water, Kindle. When we went to the emergency room to try to deal with the back pain that I now realize he completely made up so that he could be in a bad mood and like weaponize his moods and his back pain to justify everything. And now I know that he actually never had back pain. It was all a lie. They lie about that too, y'all. Men who like all of a sudden have an injury, a mysterious injury, a lot of those men are lying to trick you into staying with them anyway. So in that relationship, I realized the worst parts of myself that I really need to work on, which I did after I got out of that relationship. And I also tapped into other parts of myself that I was like, oh, the same way I've talked about how Jane Fonda in her documentary, when she realized that one of her husbands introduced her to a side of herself she didn't know that was so a calling for her was activism. And he was all about acting. He was a terrible husband, but he introduced her into activism, which has remained a big part of her life. Another one, you know, billionaire Ted Turner or whatever, he introduced her to the wilderness and the outdoors, which she didn't realize was a really important part of her life. And then the other dude, I forgot what he did. But a lot of women realize who we want to be or what we want to do through men, or through just relationships. It doesn't have to be with men, especially if you don't date men. And I want to encourage women to decenter romantic love, or everyone to decenter romantic love, but especially the people who suffer under that delusion so much, under patriarchy, to find yourself, date yourself, so that you don't need to find these parts of yourself in a relationship. Although relationships are healing, or they are enlightening about what you need to work on. So obviously you are going to find yourself in relation to people sometimes. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, I did not realize how much I actually wanted sometimes to wear dresses until I was in that relationship. That's, other than a whole lot of trauma that I realized I had to deal with, that is one of the only things I got from that relationship. Also, being reminded I don't ever want to be a mother, ever, 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 to a man or a child or anyone. Anyway, one of the hardest parts about getting out of that relationship was forgiving myself for how crazy I'd been. Limerence, chronic codependency, all those things played into it. I was literally addicted, and I really wish that we would treat some people, especially if they were this far on the pick-me spectrum or cool girl spectrum. A lot of that is rooted in maybe former trauma or chronic codependency, maybe growing up in an addictive family, a narcissistic parent, maybe, whatever. The more we just stop being so ashamed of the stuff that we did to try to not feel crazy. Like this woman, I'm going to show some of her screenshots. I'm going to share those, and then I'm going to share some of my own. Not screenshots, but just some of the things I did. And I'll probably do maybe an extended version of this for my Patreon folks, because I'm trying to keep some of my life very private, because I'm feeling more and more exposed in ways that don't make me that make me a little uncomfortable. Anyway, let's just look at this lady. So before I found her over on TikTok, so this person posted this: the brains of a woman on the brink of need to be studied. Thinking about that time, I was so down bad over a man that I drove to his house at 3 a.m. with all my car lights off, parked in his driveway, connected my car, Bluetooth to his phone when he was asleep, and then scrolled through all his text messages on my car dash to see if he was cheating. He was. Not always, but almost every time you think they're cheating, they are. And then we do stuff like this because they will just not, they lie through omission, they lie to our face, they lie. I swear to God, one of men's biggest problems. I'm not saying women don't lie, but I'm just saying a lot of men are, this goes back to the king baby thing. Like, they're so emotionally immature, and they're so used to getting away with things, and they're so used to not being held accountable, which is like, and just like they literally resort into that boyish, like, I'm just going to tell a lie rather than have to face consequences. So again, I'm not saying that women do not lie. All humans do not lie. I'm just saying that patriarchy has enabled men through power structures and through their own entitlement and their own conditioning to just lie all the time and get away with it. And then this is what we do, because they are doing things they should not be doing and lying about it. And this creates so much betrayal trauma that some of us never get over it. I went to her page. There's another. Remembering the time that I sent a DoorDash order to his place to surprise him with a late night snack. And in the DoorDash chat, I forced the driver to knock on his front door. So one, I could see if he was actually home. Two, to see if he was alone. Here's another one. Remember when I used to literally look up whatever bar, restaurant he was at and look at every single post that was made in that location on Instagram and Snapchat to see if I could peep him in the background to see if him and the boys were flirting with other girls or not? Okay, now this, I'm not saying it takes a man to create this, because, I mean, honestly, any of us who come from bad relationships or just like have a lot of stuff from our childhood in terms of attachment stuff and abandonment issues and stuff, like this is what we do when we have not worked on that, because this is unhinged, right? But this dude was cheating, and so like of course, like this is bonkers to do, but he gave her a reason to be like this. But also, like, the fact that she's sharing all this means that she knows that she really like needs to work on herself, and I hope she is. So her talking about breaking into her boyfriend's phone, then she has all these other things talking about how many women are doing this. Talking about how, you know, one of her coworkers did this and it broke into his iCloud, so all of the texts were dinging on her phone as if they were actually her text. Also showed this screenshot of like when she finally broke up with that dude, how much he was calling her, harassing her, trying to stay with her, despite just cheating on her a lot, it sounds like. My call log looked like every day after I left him for months, because clearly he was the issue. Like y'all, it's not just her. Like if you go and look at any of her stuff, the comments are full of other women either being like, how do I do that? Or women sharing some of their like CIA level investigation skills. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. The like dealers who hang out right here, they hide their stuff in our fence. Like, anyway, there's nothing I can do about it. Always like hanging out here talking about their little deals and hiding it on the outside of our fence and whatever. Okay, so not only does this woman have like a playlist of how you connect your phone so you can see if this person is cheating, she also has a video of her learning to, look at this. I remember when I lost my mind, the guy I liked said he liked dancers and I wanted to set myself apart from the dance team by being able to break dance. She has this whole video of her doing this to try to win him. Okay, so let's just recognize right here that this is being far over here on the pick-me spectrum. And the reason why I say spectrum, if you're new here, is because there is no way you can, if you're raised as a woman under patriarchy, you cannot not be a pick-me. You will be one for survival, so you don't die on some level. Like it's just, and also just because it's so deeply indoctrinated. But some women seem to just like not do this much. Probably maybe because, I don't know, maybe because of their upbringing. And then you have other women who are like, you know, because of patriarchy teaching us we need a man to survive. We need approval of a man. We need the social, like we need all of the things that we're a loser if we don't. We need blah, 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 all that stuff. Like we already know, this is not 101 class. But like, this is why I like women sharing this stuff. It is so embarrassing, but I want us to not be so ashamed of our past doing this, because it's what helps move us forward, right? And that's honestly one of the reasons why I realized that storytelling is my thing. Like for those of y'all who don't know, I started off doing improv in New York, and that was my thing for several years, although it just like, it was fun, but it was just like, I wasn't as passionate about it. And then I started doing storytelling because my improv team was like, are all of your scenes initiated by real life stories? I'm like, yeah, aren't yours? And they're like, no, we start off our scenes in a rocket going to space, but all of yours seem like real scenarios that you would have probably actually been in because your life is so crazy. And I'm like, yeah, they are. And then I realized, oh my God, I am like, why am I in the art form that requires making everything up? When I could just talk about what actually happened in my life and things that I've been through, the people I've met, the places I've gone, the jobs I've done, blah, blah, blah. And I realized every time I tell a story about just being like there's a story I told for The Moth about schmegsual debt and how I hooked up with this one dude who got in a fight with a cage fighter at our ski instructor party in Jackson Hole at the end of the season, and how I ended up hooking up with him because he got in a fight over me because I felt bad that he had a black eye. And even though he didn't really put pressure on me, I put pressure on myself to hook up with this dude to reward him, because I felt like it was my fault he got in a fight, which it absolutely was not. And that, you know, he had done something, sacrificed something for me, and I was never even attracted to this dude. Anyway, it's one of my favorite stories. I should probably actually tell the whole thing here, because I won the Moth with this story. This is the first story I won the Moth with. And every time I've told that story on stage, and I just remember one specific time this woman came up to me. She was like, I had no idea if somebody else did all of this crazy stuff, that somebody else thought this way and convinced them. She's like, I can't tell you how many men I've hooked up with because I thought I had to, and I owed them something because they did something nice. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess there's something to this. Like, I'm not ashamed of that story anymore, but I didn't realize it's liberating for other women to release their own shame around all the things they've done to try to win the approval of a man, to try to just play the game of patriarchy. And then when you mix it up with like unhealed trauma, codependency, and you know, all of these things, abandonment stuff and all of this stuff, right? It can be just so dangerous. First of all, this kind of thinking will literally take your life. I mean, there's so many situations I could have like literally died in because of like the way I was centering men without even realizing it, instead of centering myself and my safety, and my pleasure, and all those things that are very important and lead to self-respect instead of self-abandonment on a regular basis. And so, I should probably tell even more stories about the crazy stuff that I did with my ex. But I love that even though she has gotten like thousands of comments on those videos. Like one of the videos has like millions of likes, and comments, like thousands of comments, and she's reading them all, which I highly do not suggest doing that. If you ever are a content creator, to read all of it, it will take such a toll on your mental health. You kind of have to in order to like block people, but whatever. Getting shamed by so many people, but then being validated by a lot of women who've done the exact same thing. And then of course you get a lot of comments like this, and I get this sentiment, I really do, and I believe in this sentiment. Imagine we channeled this unhinged energy towards something else. Yeah, imagine if I remember thinking this when I first realized it, when I was like really back in my early 20s. I was living in a shed in the back of a youth hostel in Taos, New Mexico, with no heat or anything. I was freezing to death, and I lived in it was literally a wood box. And I was working as a ski instructor, and I worked at the hostel in order to pay rent. And I just remember reading, I was still educating myself about feminism and all of this stuff. And I just remember reading a book that's being like, imagine what you did if you didn't spend all this time and money and energy on your eating disorder, for instance. And I was like, oh my God, I started to realize, and it was just with like body stuff, right? And all of like body image issues and internalized and all kinds of stuff. The things that I was doing to torture my body to try to control it. And also part of that is because my dad totally shamed me about my body all the time, and literally was planted that seed in my head, that this is the most important thing. But I remember thinking, gosh, wow, this is a lot of time and energy, and I'm like destroying myself. What if I put all this energy I put towards destroying myself, if I actually worked towards something like, I don't know, activism? So then it's like as I've been waking up, I'm like, wow, imagine all the time and energy I would put towards something else if I wasn't chasing after a breadcrumb dude who doesn't like me. You know what I mean? So as much as I agree with this, not everyone can do this, because a lot of women are doing all of this, learning how to break dance to impress a guy, to other, being the cool girl, being the pick me, all this stuff. We are doing all of this because we have so much stuff where we need to heal. It's not like we want to be doing this, but A, it can be an addiction. B, it's because we are deep indoctrination in terms of what is valuable under patriarchy. And a lot of times just like, and it's so normalized through movies and everything. Another one, this girl's talents are wasted. I mean, and it's true. Imagine figuring out how to break into someone's phone. I mean, yes, you look crazy going and doing all that stuff, but like the things, I'm telling you, women should be running the FBI, or the CIA. If the CIA wasn't behind like literally destroying countries in the global south through our colonial, whatever, like if the CIA wasn't such a awful extension of colonialism and American imperialism and U.S. American imperialism and all that stuff. But you know what I mean? Like the skills, the spy, like women are such good spies. We're amazing spies. We're amazing detectives. We can figure anything out, because it's a survival. We adapt to surviving this mess. But now that we are unpacking this, and now that we know we don't need these men, and that it's better if we collectively join forces and take care of each other, instead of like doing all of this and screwing over our friends and becoming the worst version of ourselves in order to get the approval of a man who's just cheating on us anyway and making us feel awful about ourselves and baby trapping us and stealing all of our money and derailing our careers and making us into resentful, bitter women who are like mourn a whole life or a whole decades of our lives lost because this man forced us to center him as the sun, and we are just a planet that revolves around him. Once we stop doing that, imagine what all this energy could do. World-changing stuff. And all of us don't have to do it. Just a small fraction of us using these talents, this energy, and this healing energy for this, versus in the cycle of violence. Imagine. That's why I'm doing this. Then there's other people in that thread, just all this stuff of the things that women did to figure out their men were cheating. I love this. I support women's wrongs. This right here. They trained us. Yes, they did. They didn't train us. We figured it out, but they forced us to find these solutions in order to not feel crazy. So I'm going to share a little bit more of my own personal story over on Patreon. If you are not a member there, please join. And even if you can't afford it, I do share stuff for free in the free tier over there. The point is that I just want to start like, okay, this is a good place to start. Honestly, with anything, this is something I need to do in an area of my life, or like around finances, for instance. I've done this with media before. I've done this with all kinds of things. Take an inventory. Start tracking how much time you spend on dating apps. Maybe even, I mean, would be terrifying if you actually tracked how many times you looked at your phone waiting to see if he texted you. That's going to reveal one thing. Either A, this dude does not like you, or B, you need to really work on not hinging your peace and your validation and your sense of self from hearing back from him. And also like how to refrain from sending out a text to get someone to validate you, and putting yourself in that position of having to wait for that text, because I definitely caught myself. Let me know if you want me to talk more about that. I definitely realized I need to move through relationships. I need to pause before I just fire off a text to somebody, because a lot of times I am sending that text for the wrong reason. It is not to connect. It is not to ask a question that I really need to know the answer to. It's not to say hi. It is because I'm feeling bored or lonely or insecure, and I'm firing off a text because I know it'll feel so good to get one in return. And the problem is that you may not get that one in return, and then you derail your whole day, your whole writing process, your whole work, whatever, your whole night out with friends waiting for that text. And if that's the case, then you probably need to look into maybe some codependency, whatever. The point is that I just, we can't change men. We cannot change men. We're not supposed to. It's not our issue. But what we can do is start changing ourselves and what we're doing, what we're putting up with, what we're tolerating, what we're enabling, what we're encouraging, what we are, the energy, what we're giving our energy to, our time to, because that kind of inventory, that real reckoning with ourselves will help us start to see how much they waste our time and our resources and our talents, right? And I honestly don't know any woman who hasn't done it on some level. Most have not done it that level of crazy. But there's no shame in really facing yourself and how much you may be putting into a fantasy or into a relationship that is not actually making you feel better. It's making you feel worse. Maybe you shouldn't be dating right now. Maybe it's all personal. It's all very contextual. It's very personal. We're all on our own individual journey within a collective, and we can heal within a collective, but some of it is an inside job. So anyway, I'm going to end that here. Please follow my Patreon. Please comment, like, share. Make sure the notifications are set on up if you want to actually see my stuff. And make sure you're actually subscribed if you want to be, because YouTube consistently unsubscribes people who are big fans of my work and they didn't even realize they're unsubscribed. So thank you for listening. Et voila.